everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding us for the very first time or you are a returning viewer and have not yet done so, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when we put up new content right here on this channel. So unfortunately, I'm flying solo here this weekend for the wrestling recap for the weekend. It's going to include SummerSlam, NXT Takeover 36, and all these other big shows that kind of happened over the weekend in regards to WWE and AEW. We've got a lot to cover, but I'm sure Brandon will be back this week for our normal wrestling recap here. That drops every Thursday on the channel, but since this is a big weekend, I wanted to cover some of these shows a little bit earlier, and we're going to be dropping them today, so I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's get into some of these shows without further ado here. Since a couple of the storylines that happened from SmackDown kind of tie into SummerSlam, we're going to go over SmackDown first, then we're going to go over what happened on Rampage, because that was a big event based on who returned on that show and all that sort of stuff. So let's get into this here. SmackDown, most of it was rematches and things like that, so it's not a whole lot to really talk about here, but there was a few segments that were interesting to note. The show opened up with the Edge cutting a great promo on Seth Rollins and stuff like that. Very well delivered. Definitely playing into the fact of Seth Rollins put his boot on the back of his neck in 2014, which is a storyline I really wanted them to continue to play up, and I'm glad that they did that here. That was one of the things that built up this feud, and I thought that it was something that they really need to drive the point home, and I'm glad to see that they were doing that. Edge was worried about his future with his wife and his kids and things like that when it all happened. Great delivery here, and he talked about he was going to be going to a dark place that Seth Rollins has pushed him to, and I really like what they did with that at SummerSlam, so definitely a good promo here by Edge. We also had a singles match. Jey Uso defeated Rey Mysterio after Dominic was not listening to Rey, his father. He tried to cheat, and it backfired and cost Rey Mysterio the win here. This to me is just kind of like, all right, we've seen this over and over and over again on SmackDown where one of the Usos is facing Rey or Dominic in a singles match. And this is what WWE does to set up their tag team title matches. And it's starting to get really old. And I mean, formulaic isn't a bad thing, but when you continue to do it over and over and over and like the same thing every week, just rematch after rematch after rematch, we've seen this already. And it really, to me, when we got to the SummerSlam show, it really did not, make me want to see that tag team title match anymore, because I've already seen these guys wrestle constantly for the last month and a half, and I was over it at that point. But I do like the seeds that they're planting, though, for Dominic Mysterio possibly, being the cause of dissension between Rey and his father because he's inexperienced and things like that. And perhaps maybe Dominic gets upset about that eventually and kind of gets a little headstrong and turns heel on Rey. That could be coming down the line here. So we'll see what they do. We had Baron Corbin defeated Kevin Owens via DQ, another rematch from SmackDown literally last week. So it's kind of like, all right, I really don't care. This Baron Corbin thing it's got to stop. I mean, I get it's something different. I'll give them that. But it's just, no one wants to see this. I'm not a fan of it. Kevin Owens is wasted here. Not only that, Kevin Owens wasn't even on SummerSlam in general. But it was a fine match. They didn't get a lot of time, but it did have a pretty weak finish for sure. But yeah, just anytime you do DQs like this, and considering WWE does them all the time, they overuse it, and I just think that they need to get rid of this. Considering, at least in this case, Big E got his Money in the Bank briefcase back, so there is that. Or no, I'm sorry, that was at SummerSlam. This here, Corbin ran away with the briefcase even after the match is over. So at SummerSlam, Big E did get his briefcase back. So at least they did do that, because there was a lot of people concerned that Baron Corbin was going to keep that briefcase and actually use it to cash it in. And it's like, you didn't even earn it, and in effect would be killing the Money in the Bank ladder match stipulation. So it's like, that would not be a good idea. So at least they didn't pull that trigger. If they did, maybe they heard some criticism about it. And it seems like a lot of things that WWE did this weekend was reactionary to a lot of things. So we're going to get into that when we get into the SummerSlam review here. But there's just a lot of things it seems like they're just doing not because they planned it, but because, either Rampage is doing this, or, we've got to do this to kind of get people talking or something. We got to make a big splash, based on everything that's going on. So it just felt like a lot of things they've been doing is reactionary lately, and that's never a good thing. It's good to, if you're, especially when it comes to the competition, to react, I guess, a little bit to kind of like, all right, they did something big, so we got to do something. So it elevates your game and, step your game up. That's all well and good. But sometimes if you're doing it just to be like, all right, we've got to do something too now, you panic. That's never a good thing. You can react, but you can do it, strategically and do it properly. And I think some of the things they did this weekend felt a little, knee-jerk, in my opinion. But we'll talk about it. We also had a championship contender match, which I'm sick of these also on SmackDown. The only way to get title match in the future is to beat the champions. That's got to go. Not only that, Tegan Nox and Shotzi, who defeated the SmackDown Women's Tag Team Champions, not SmackDown, the Women's Tag Team Champions, Tamina and Natalya here in less than 3 minutes. We've seen them beat the Women's Tag Team Champions, once already, and then I believe it was Nox, I think, defeated Tamina in a singles match. So they've already been beating these, ladies already. So we don't need to see it again. But they win again here, and I guess we'll get it again because we're going to have to continue this feud and get the actual tag team title match, which at this point, I don't know who would want to watch it. We've already seen these women wrestle too many times. So yeah, they got to stop building their title matches like this. It's not the right way to do this. But good to see Nox and Blackheart on television, though. That's a good thing. They kind of just disappeared for a little bit there. Seth Rollins segment, also, it ended in a bloodbath, basically, the old Brood bloodbath that when Edge was with Gangrel and Christian back in the day. Definitely, that's the dark place that Edge is going. I really like it that they did that here, kind of calling back to the beginning of Edge's career. Nothing wrong with that, and I really like that aesthetic. I got a feeling it's a one-off just for this weekend with the Brood stuff, but definitely cool because Seth Rollins was wearing this shiny white suit when this bath hit him. It was like some sort of black substance. It wasn't really blood per se, but it turned that suit completely dark, and that's a shame because that was a really nice suit for sure. Some of the stuff Seth Rollins wears doesn't really sit well with me, but I thought that was a nice suit. Otis defeated Montez Ford. Again, we've kind of seen these guys a little bit here. It's not as running to the ground yet as say some of the stuff with the Usos and the Mysterios, but I'm glad to see Otis getting a win here for sure. He had a Vader bomb for the pinfall, but so I'm happy with what they're doing with Otis, no doubt. They're actually using him a little bit better, so that's a plus. So nothing wrong with that. King Nakamura and Rick Boogs defeated Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz in 3 minutes. Another very short match. All these matches are short. That's the problem with WWE right now. Nothing longer than 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops. A lot of times unless it's a main event thing, like at SummerSlam or a pay-per-view. But all their weekly shows is just 2 minutes, 3 minutes. There's no investment there from a wrestling standpoint, and that's... I know they're supposedly sports entertainment, but this is a pro wrestling match. You've got to give it the proper time, the proper build, so the fans can get into it. It's an okay match. It didn't get a whole lot of time, as I mentioned, and Boogs and Cruz tagged in, and Nakamura caught Aziz with a sliding drop kick, and the finish came when Boogs slammed Cruz for the win. So at least Rick Boogs gets in a match here finally, so we were able to see him for the first time. Didn't look too bad. I want to see a little bit more out of him, but he gets the win here, so good for Rick Boogs. Non-title match, SmackDown Women's Champion Bianca Belair defeated Zelina Vega, and then, of course, right after that, defeated Carmella, and, short matches, but, considering what they did with Bianca Belair, this means absolutely nothing now. We'll get into that once we get to SummerSlam, and, of course, SmackDown ended with Universal Champion Roman Reigns and John Cena going face-to-face in a segment at the end of the show. This was the exact same face-off they had last week, in my opinion. Cena's talking about, it takes us 1, 2, 3, and, Roman, kind of running down Cena. It was the exact same thing until the very end of it where Roman's like, all right, if I don't win, let's raise the stakes. If I don't win at SummerSlam, I will leave WWE, which, first of all, was a stupid decision. Why would you even raise the stakes with this stip like that? Because you basically just told the entire fan base that Roman Reigns is winning. Now, you could have had some crazy plan where John Cena wins his 17th title and Roman, takes some time off or something like that. But it just telegraphed the win here for Roman, which many people expected Roman to retain the title, I think, if you're a smart fan and some of the behind-the-scenes things that are going on like I do. To him to just come out and say, I'm going to leave WWE if I lose the title. We all know he ain't leaving, so it's like, way to kind of bury it there. That was not a very good way to lead into SummerSlam, but that's what they chose to do. I don't know if they thought they were trying to counteract Rampage's opening segment here because it kind of happened right before it or not, but not a very good sell. It was kind of pointless, really, to be honest with you. And that leads us to one of the bigger things that happened this weekend, of course, and that is, of course, AEW Rampage. We're going to go over it here real quick because obviously the crowd, and it was hyped from the very beginning. It was a sold-out crowd. Because they've been teasing the arrival, and we got the arrival of course, the one and only CM Punk debuts after a 7-year absence. Cult of Personality. I'm glad to see that Tony Khan paid for the rights to use that music because I think that's what most people I know the Kill Switch Engage song, This Fire Burns, I believe is what it was called, was also a good theme song that WWE used back in the day, but I prefer Cult of Personality. I just always have. It was when CM Punk was at his, pinnacle of his, singles run in WWE, so it makes most sense that that's where the most fans are going to remember him from. That was when he was the most popular at the time, and so yeah, it makes sense to get this music here. And of course, once it blared, the crowd went absolutely bananas. I know a lot of people are comparing who had the better return this weekend. We'll get into that in the SummerSlam review, but there were a few on this weekend as a whole, so it's important to go over. He stood on the ramp and slowly, since this is a little more important, I'm going to go in this a little more detail. He stood on the ramp and slowly worked his way down to the ring, soaking in the cheers and chants from the crowd. He even did a dive into the crowd at one point on his way to the ring, hugging several folks and fans at ringside. He might have even recognized one woman as his sister from her appearances in WWE back in 2012 or something like that. That's what this article says. But yeah, he did hug some people along the way. After Punk got a mic, though, they took a commercial break because they didn't want to cut him off mid sentence and go into the commercial. Back from the break, Punk was back in the ring, still listening to the fans chant his name, visibly moved by the crowd's reaction. He said, quote, "You guys really know how to make a kid feel like Britt Baker in Pittsburgh." So right away, clever line. So that he's already got the clever lines right back. Didn't miss a beat there. Punk did not plan what he was going to say for tonight, and he just knew he had to get out in front of the crowd and feel it, he said. The crowd continued to chant his name, and Punk said he heard the crowd chant his name for 7 years. Punk doesn't have the time to get into everything tonight because it's only a 1 hour show. We have 3 matches on this show, as a matter of fact. But he's got every Wednesday, Friday, and 4 Saturdays or Sundays a year because that's when AEW does their pay-per-views once every quarter. He's not going anywhere, he said. Punk explained basically that he had to leave for 7 years because he was never going to get physically or emotionally healthy if he stayed in the place he was. He never said WWE, but the reference there is obviously that, because he goes on to talk about, he basically kind of acts like his time in WWE didn't really exist because it's not pro wrestling, as he put it. Punk asked the crowd if he could tell them a story, and to be honest, I'm sure I'm like a lot of fans and people on YouTube. I would have loved to just watch Punk talk for an hour. If they had no matches on this show, I would have been perfectly fine with it. But they did want to get some matches in for sure because they are a pro wrestling company. It's important to them. That's a great thing. So he sat cross-legged in the ring like he did the night of the famous pipe bomb promo, and it kind of became a thing. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that. The crowd erupted when he dropped down and sat down. Punk told the story of how he left Ring of Honor in 2005 and how he cried because he was leaving a place that he loved, that people could learn how to wrestle and how to love wrestling there. And he knew the place where he was going wasn't going to be easy for a guy like him because he's smaller. He's not considered the big muscle meathead that Vince McMahon loves to see in WWE, and that does not always translate to good professional wrestler. Yes, Vince has had a lot of success with those guys, but this is 2021. You don't have to be the biggest man in the business to become successful, and we're going to see a lot of that in AEW, and of course some other guys who are going to be probably jumping over there based by the end of the show. There's going to be a guy from NXT we're going to talk about that may be jumping over there based on what happened after NXT Takeover, so we'll get into that. He said Punk said that he left professional wrestling in 2005 in Ring of Honor, so again, basically saying he didn't, basically not really discussing WWE, talking like that was the last time he pro wrestled in Ring of Honor. What he did in WWE was not pro wrestling. And now tonight he said he's back in pro wrestling. And Punk is back to work with the young talent that he wanted to be surrounded by 10 years ago, and he's back to settle some scores in the locker room as well. So right away he's talking about young talent. So he wants to help build younger talent. Now granted, he's going to get a match with Darby Allin here. A lot of people are going to be talking about, oh, well, that means AEW booked CM Punk to beat Darby Allin on his opening night. But here's the thing. Darby Allin, it's not going to hurt him. He's at a point in his career now, if he takes a loss against CM Punk, it's not going to hurt his career. A lot of people will say, oh, it's a part-time. CM Punk, as they explained afterwards in the media scrum, Tony Khan and CM Punk said he's a full-time wrestler. He's going to be there basically every week. He may not wrestle every single week, obviously, because AEW doesn't do that sort of thing where guys, can have weeks off and they may make a presence, but they may not be in the ring every single week, so they don't get overexposed. So that's a good thing. But Darby Allin, he called out Darby Allin, and the camera found him and Sting standing in the rafters. Punk praised Darby Allin, calling him as tough as the people of Chicago. That's no lie, that's for sure. CM Punk told Darby Allin there's only one thing tougher than fighting CM Punk, and that's fighting CM Punk in Chicago. Punk challenged Darby Allin for a match at All Out. So take my money. I mean, All Out was always going to be centered around CM Punk, which is why we're not getting Adam Hangman Page going for the Kenny Omega title. Or the AEW title, because they didn't want to overshadow CM Punk. Well, they more likely didn't want to overshadow Adam Hangman Page's title win with CM Punk's debut match in AEW. So not only that, Adam Hangman Page has confirmed that the reason why he's not going to be there is because his wife is pregnant and is due to give birth to their child around the same time. So it makes sense to not pull the trigger yet. And they've got a big name coming in who can take that position for this show. And, of course, we're going to have some other great matches surrounding it as well. Andrade and Pac is very underrated, and I think it's going to be possibly a show stealer and maybe a Match of the Year candidate if done right. Then again, we had a Match of the Year candidate at NXT this week, so we're going to get into that here in a minute as well. So Punk challenged Allen for the match, and Punk ended the promo telling the fans that 7 years is a long time to wait for someone and to grab a free ice cream bar on him as they leave the building. So yes, this was absolutely excellent, completely amazing. A+ promo from Punk that took up about 20 minutes of the opening of the show. Yeah, it just doesn't do it justice until you see it. The raw emotion that was coming out of Punk, because again, this is a guy who, wasn't treated the greatest in WWE. A lot of people want to say that Punk was, had sour grapes after leaving the company. But, I tend to side with Punk on this one just because of everything we've seen over the years with the way WWE treats their talent, and not to mention the way they're treating a lot of their talent now with the releases and things like that. They've got, really great talented wrestlers on their roster currently, even before they cut even after they cut some of these guys, and they're just not using them properly. They put out an edict: you can't be under a certain size or under a certain height, otherwise they're not going to look at you. It's like, all right, that doesn't mean they're bad. I mean, you're passing over great talent. But here's the thing. WWE's loss is AEW's gain, and that does not mean that they're going to be signing all their wrestlers, but it does mean they're going to be signing select ones that are actually worth something, like your Malachi Blacks, your Andrades, CM Punk, who looks in great shape for a guy who's only 42. WWE's using wrestlers who are older than that right now, and even AEW's got a few, like Jericho, who I believe just cracked 50 years old. So Punk has still got a few years left in him, and as long as he can still go in the ring, and a lot of people are saying that he looks great. He's actually been training, and he's been not missing a beat, so we'll see what he can do. Darby Allin will help him to look good, even if there is a little bit of ring rust, and I'm sure CM Punk will bring Darby Allin to a great match as well. And Darby is probably going to lose this match, no doubt about it, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. We've talked here on the channel about how you can actually lose wrestling matches and still put on a good show and get over just the same. Darby has lost some matches before as well, and look how over the guy is. The dude is on fire right now. It doesn't really matter who wins this match. I don't think you beat Punk in his debut match back, so Darby is definitely going to be taking the loss here, in my opinion. But again, it's going to be just fine. It's not going to hurt either guy. People just need to calm down when it comes to that sort of thing, in my opinion. So yeah, I think this may not be the ideal wrestler right away, in my opinion, but you can maybe find somebody else. But you don't want to do MJF right out the gate either. You want to build a feud like that, or build a feud against a Kenny Omega. You can't have Punk come in and immediately challenge for the AEW World Title either. You got to make it mean something. You got to make it where he earned the opportunity, and not just come in like, say, a Bill Goldberg and get a title match for no reason whatsoever. So AEW's booking this right. Have a little faith in them. Unlike WWE, they've given you, they've given you examples of times where if you give them the faith, they will pay it off, and they will, once it plays out, it will mean something. WWE's track record, if you wait for it to play out, that usually doesn't go anywhere. So that's the difference between these two companies right now. And if that changes in WWE, their shows will be a lot better. But a lot of times it doesn't, and we'll get into some of that here in a little bit. We had also to round out Rampage. I mean, after Punk, it kind of, there was some good matches still, but at the same time, it wasn't anything, super newsworthy. It's but the Tag Team Eliminator Tournament, Jungle Express did defeat Private Party to advance in the tournament. They'll face the winners of the Lucha Bros and the Varsity Blondes on Dynamite, or after Dynamite next week, on next week's Rampage, to see who gets to go against the Young Bucks at All Out in a steel cage match to prevent the Elite from interfering as well. So so far AEW, they've only had a cage, maybe one cage match or two, and so far they've not ruined the stipulation of the cage by having people get in the cage and interfere. It's supposed to keep people out. That was the whole idea and the concept of a steel cage back in the day. WWE now, it's just like anybody can get in no matter what. It doesn't keep nobody out. So let's hope that the AEW will continue to keep the cage intact and have it serve its purpose. We had Jade Cargill defeated Kiera Hogan, who made her debut on AEW. Everybody was complaining it was only about a minute, but at the same time, they were kind of crunched for time with the CM Punk stuff. It's not that big of a deal. Kiera Hogan will have better matches. It's not a problem. This is one of those things we're just trying to highlight Jade Cargill. It's not like they buried her or anything like that, unlike, Bianca Belair, which we'll get into here in a little bit, too. We had a recap of Punk's return, and then, of course, we had Jon Moxley defeating Daniel Garcia in 4 minutes. Yes, I complain about the short matches on WWE programming. Yes, there was a couple short matches here at the end of this show, but again, we were crunched for time because they were trying to get the CM Punk stuff in here in an hour. That's why I feel like if this continues to happen sort of like this, Rampage could possibly go to 2 hours in my opinion, but they did have a 10-minute match with the Jungle Express and Private Party to start the show, so right away, they started it off with a longer match. It probably would have even went longer had we not had that whole 20-minute segment. 1/3 of the show was dedicated to CM Punk's return, as it should have been. If it had been any shorter, I think that crowd would have rioted. But it seemed to make him happy. And again, I think this show would have been just fine without any matches at all. But you couldn't advertise no matches for your pro wrestling show. So I'm glad that they at least stuck to that. So yes, CM Punk was the story of the night, story of the pro wrestling world this weekend. Obviously, it is a big deal when it comes to the landscape in pro wrestling in general. Of course, there's a lot of talk this week. I know Roman Reigns had talked about, well, he was not as over as he thought he was, or he didn't move the needle or anything like that. But here's the thing, though. I'm not trying to begrudge Roman Reigns too much because obviously he was asked this question about part-timers coming back for world title shots and things like that since he's facing Cena and, Goldberg come back. Then he talked like, you should, want to wrestle, you should want to relish in that opportunity. Yeah, he was, but he went on to say, to reference CM Punk and talk about how he was never a needle mover or, he was trying to ride the middle line there and not really get into any controversy. So I'm not going to begrudge Roman too much on it. But at the same time, to say he didn't move the needle, we're going to find out what the ratings are for Rampage on Monday. We're going to find out how much he moved the needle for Rampage. It's probably going to be a big deal. Now, granted, once, the excitement dies down for the return, it's probably going to come down a bit, no doubt about that. But to also say that, he wasn't, as over as he thought he was, well, I hate to say this, all you got to do is look at the Pro Wrestling Tees website and AEW Shop website, both of which crashed for about 24 hours after the fact that CM Punk debuted because everybody and their brother were trying to buy the new Best in the World t-shirt with the logo you can see here on the screen. So, to say he's not over, that's ridiculous. The thing about WWE is, They would claim that Dean Ambrose or the new Jon Moxley wasn't over, or certain guys, are not as big as John Cena or The Rock. Well, I hate to tell Roman too, he's not as big as either one of those guys either. And talking about how CM Punk couldn't pull ratings. Well, Roman Reigns is pulling the same amount of ratings that SmackDown had when Braun Strowman was the champion too. He's not doing any better, so it's not like he's really got any room to talk. But I understand he's going to toe the company line and things like that. But when you get Seth Rollins and Roman's like burying Dean on the way out, talking about that sort of stuff, it's like, come on, guys. It's okay to give credit where credit is due. CM Punk is a big deal, much like Jon Moxley is. A lot of these guys at WWE have let go because WWE doesn't see anything in them does not mean that they're not talented, does not mean that they're not over, all that sort of thing. But people want to say, oh, well, AEW's taking WWE scraps. No, WWE sometimes don't use these talents properly, don't give them the fair opportunities. Look at a guy like Bronson Reed, gets cut. He's a great talent. He's probably going to get picked up by AEW at some point. I would. Bronson Reed, or Jonah as he's calling himself now on Twitter. Those guys like that are going to get picked up by somebody at some point. So it's, just because WWE doesn't use them to their full potential does not mean that they're not worthy of it. Look at a guy like Cesaro. Cesaro is a guy that WWE has never used to his full potential. He should have been world championship or universal championship material, and they've not done so. But if he'd have gone to any other company, he would be a world champion today, immediately. You put him in the title feud once he earns it and things like that, and he would be a draw. The dude is ultra talented, but just because he's not used properly in WWE doesn't mean he can't hack it. Doesn't mean he doesn't have it. It means people need to understand that companies use these wrestlers the way they want to use them. If you use them properly and give them the opportunity, they will break out and shine sometimes. But when you hold them back or you beat them over and over and over again, which is a company thing, the wrestlers can't control that. So, they can maybe speak up, like we'll get into here in a little bit with Becky Lynch. But sometimes they choose not to do that out of fear of losing their jobs or getting buried on the card because that's just the way it is in WWE. You can't speak your mind to the owner. Otherwise, I don't agree with you. You're buried. Beat her. beat him, whatever. And that's just not the way to run a pro wrestling company. I admire Tony Khan for listening to his talent, to taking their advice into account, and also treating them like human beings and not just another number, as he mentioned on Twitter. He's absolutely correct on that. I know people want to defend WWE. People want to defend Vince McMahon. I understand it too. I'm a big fan of WWE. I've watched WWE since I was a kid, but I also have watched it long enough to know that WWE is not doing what they used to do. They're doing things improperly when it comes to their booking and things like that. And some of their storytelling makes no sense. They have no end game in a lot of these cases. They make it up as they go along. A lot of the stuff they do is not the way to book pro wrestling, and it's just a sad thing to see, to be honest with you. All right, let's move into the two big shows of the weekend. Supposedly, I know a lot of people didn't really care for SummerSlam. To me, there was 10 matches on this show. 3 of them were good. The rest of them were poorly booked or not up to par when it comes to some of the wrestling on the show. Because again, think about this. Kevin Owens, no Sami Zayn, no Finn Balor, there's no Shotzi, no Tegan, no Tony Storm. A lot of these great talents, and there's others who did not have a single match on SummerSlam, the third biggest show of the year. These people don't have some of the greatest talents that the roster has, and they did not put them on this show. But yet Eva Marie has a match, which she wrestled poorly in, by the way. It was terrible. She's not a good wrestler. She can't run the ropes right. She can't throw a punch right. Just a lot of things was horrible with this match. But she has a slot on this show. Why? Who knows? It's really hard for a lot of us fans to get invested when you're just throwing stuff like this at the screen. There's a dripstick segment as well we'll get into. The show opened up with, there was a pre-show here. Big E defeated Corbin, which, as I mentioned earlier, Big E did win this match and got his Money in the Bank briefcase back, so that's a good thing. At least they did not keep that with Baron Corbin, so that's always good. We'll move on from that though. They showed Logan Paul in the crowd, which again, how does WWE counteract CM Punk on AEW Dynamite? They announced Moist TV starring Logan Paul set for Monday Night Raw this week. Can't wait to not care about that. I get Logan Paul's popular, but not in pro wrestling circles. It's just not. So move on. That's just me. The main show of SummerSlam started out with a good booking decision, but the match was just there. To me, it felt like Monday Night Raw. Again, we've seen AJ versus Orton. We've seen Omos versus Orton. We've seen AJ versus Riddle. It's like we've seen this, not the tag team title match, but we've seen these guys in the ring so much, it just feels like we've seen it. And nothing, wrong with the decision to put the belts on Riddle and Orton. RK Bro here win the Raw Tag Team Championships against AJ Styles and Omos. But as much as I don't like Riddle's character, I think he's a great wrestler. I just feel like this gimmick of his is not. It was way better in NXT, so it wasn't quite as corny and cheesy. But yeah, it's the right call to put it on these two guys. They've been building this for a long time, and eventually it's going to lead to Randy Orton turning on Orton or Riddle, I'd assume. Or at least they're going to have a match down the line, whether they're still the champions at the time because they're not getting along, or they're going to lose the belts and they're going to fight for, against each other. So we'll see what they do. But at least for now, it's the right call to put the titles on Orton and Riddle. If they weren't going to do that, there was no sense in doing this whole storyline to begin with. So there is that. Alexa Bliss defeated Eva Marie with Doudrop at ringside. Brief "We Want Wyatt" chant. Obviously, anytime Alexa Bliss comes out anymore, she's going to get that chant because Bray Wyatt was unceremoniously fired from the company, which, again, another guy who probably end up in AEW at some point. And to be honest, if he ends up in AEW, I hope they make him the leader of the Dark Order. That would make all the sense in the world, especially to honor his close personal friend, Brody Lee, who passed away. I think that would be the way to do it. So I guess, Alexa Bliss beat her clean here with a DDT for the pinfall. Doudrop was amused that Eva Marie lost. We all were. Doudrop, don't worry about that. Doudrop grabbed the mic and announced that Eva Marie was the loser, and she mocked Eva Marie and walked off in her robe, kind of strutting her stuff. This better lead to the fact that Doudrop drops Eva Marie and goes by Piper Niven, because this Doudrop stuff is a disaster. There's no sense to do it. They should have just had her call her Piper Niven from the get-go, and you could have still done the turn on Eva Marie if you wanted to, but really there's just no sense in doing this whole Dewdrop stuff. That was a terrible name from the get-go. This Alexa Bliss stuff is another thing. Everybody wants to say, let WWE play out their storylines. Oh, let's wait and see where it's going. But here's the thing. I'm still waiting to see where this Alexa Bliss thing is going to go, with the Fiend character. But we can't do that now because Bray Wyatt's no longer a part of the company. So where are we going with Alexa Bliss? Is she just going to be the Fiend forever? Part of me thinks the best way to handle this is probably have Nikki Ash now, since she's got nothing better to do after this show. Maybe she could save her, former best friend Alexa Bliss from the evil, with her superhero character. I don't know. You can maybe do that, but to me, the best way to end this Alexa Bliss Fiend gimmick would be if Bray Wyatt was still a part of this. But apparently, we can't do that now. So again, wait and see it. Let it play out. WWE has proven time and time again when you wait and see and let things play out, they don't have a plan. So they've disappointed us over and over and over again. I'm not saying they can't do it right. They can, because I thought what they should have done with the Becky Lynch return here in a little bit with Bianca, they could have done what they did with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at the end of the show with Becky and Bianca, and it would have been better. But no, they had to do what they did with to Bianca, which I still can't believe they did. We'll get into it in a second. Damian Priest, one of the best things on this show, Damian Priest, who has not lost a singles match since he got called up to the main roster. Very good booking of Damian Priest. So I'm glad it seems like the company is at least behind him. This is how you book a new star properly. You let them get wins, and you let them win a title like this, or in this case, the U.S. Championship. He defeated Sheamus. But again, nothing. I like the fact that they put the belt on Priest, no doubt about it. But we've seen Priest over and over and over again with Miz and Morrison. To the point, at least this is a little bit new, but even then, he's beaten Sheamus already before this week because they had him in championship contender matches. This is a match that they should have never had them have any Now, for the last few weeks, they kind of had no contact, but they had him beat Sheamus a couple times already, once or twice already. So it's at this point, it's like, all right, we've seen it. Stop giving out free matches to the match you're going to do on the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view you build to, the two contenders or the two combatants in the ring should not be in a match beforehand. Singles you can do like the tag team stuff, but don't do it so much. Do it once and be done. This sort of thing where they're doing it week in, week out because they have no better ideas or a larger depth at the roster. You got to stop doing this because all it's doing is killing any interest the crowd has in your pay-per-view match, and it shows with some of these crowd reactions, and that's why WWE has to constantly put in pipe in crowd noise during these shows because they're not getting the fans interested. They're sitting there just watching and staring on their phones, things like that. They're not invested in this, so they're not going to cheer. So and I get WWE thinks, they're just going to boo what we want them to cheer, and so we'll just manipulate our crowd noise to make it sound like what we're doing is getting over. That's not the right way to go about it either. It's just bad all the way around when you book stuff like this, and you've got to get it corrected. Otherwise, companies like AEW are going to surpass you. I understand a lot of people feel like, that's never going to happen. AEW's the new TNA, they're the new WCW. Right now, WWE is doing WCW stuff. We're one finish away from the finger poke of doom at this point, which killed WCW back in the day. And right now, WWE probably think, that's great, pal. Good shit. So it's like, no, WWE is doing this thing where they've got, older established talent constantly beating the new stars. That's exactly what WWE would have done back in the day. Just ask what Charlotte Flair's doing right now. Nikki Ash had the title, a few weeks? Not even a month? And now she's losing the belt. Now, granted, Charlotte lost the belt in a day, but at the same time, how long is Charlotte going to hold the belt this time? I hope that this title run for her, at least this time, means something. But we'll get into it in a second for her as well. Damian Priest wins the U.S. title here, so great, good on that. Hopefully they'll do something with him. So far they've been booking him properly, so I'll give him credit where it is due. That is a good thing on this show. So absolutely good. Good to see Damian Priest get the U.S. title here. We had the Usos defeated Dominic and Rey Mysterio to retain their SmackDown Tag Team Championships here. And again, the pay-per-view, at least, we're giving us longer matches. That's the thing WWE is doing properly. Their pay-per-view shows, since they really have already told the storylines leading up to the payoffs at these shows, their pay-per-views lately have been booked a lot better. This show was not great in some of the regards, but Money in the Bank was a great show. WrestleMania was a great show. When they give us long matches and actually pay off some feuds, sometimes if they don't drill into the ground the weeks prior, it's good. In this case, like I said with Damian Priest thing, that was great. And all these matches outside of the Alexa Bliss stuff was only like 3 minutes. Everything else was over 5 minutes for sure. Damian Priest was 13 minutes, and the SmackDown Tag Team titles was 10 minutes. So again, longer matches. You could go longer. I would rather see matches like toward the end of the show, which the ones that actually mean something, go longer. So that's good. But of course, there was one match was way too short. Yeah, but yeah, it's good to see that at least on the pay-per-views they do a better job. But the USO stuff, as I mentioned before, we've already seen this over and over and over again. Yeah, they're still trying to play up the storyline that Dominic really didn't do much to help in this match, so they're playing this dissension a little bit with the Mysterio. So again, I think this is eventually going to lead to a Dominic Mysterio singles run, and they'll do something with the young kid, and and I get it. Ray can't wrestle forever. He's getting up there in age as well. He's here to kind of get his son started. So that could be great. And maybe Ray and Dominic have a match against each other as well. That could be fun. We'll see what they do. But they're definitely playing that up here. So the Usos retain because you got to keep the bloodline strong here with the Roman Reigns faction here for sure. We had Rick Boogs gave us a musical interlude. He introduced Shinsuke Nakamura, who pranced out to pose with the IC title, but did not have a match on this show. So as a way to get Pat McAfee to dance at the announce table and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was just a thing. It was there, whatever. Then we get the worst thing, in my opinion, of the weekend and on this show. Bianca Belair entered for her match, supposedly against Sasha Banks. Now, for the last week or two, Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair have been pulled off of house shows and stuff from their, their tour, things like that. And we've not known why, but they have been still promoting this match on SmackDown. And of course, they've been advertising it for SummerSlam for weeks on end, and they've not, changed their advertisement for it. As soon as Bianca Belair gets to the ring, the only time they mention that, Sasha Banks was not going to be able to compete was right here at the beginning of this match as Belair is standing in the ring. WWE, according to reports, had known that up to 8 days before the show was going to go live, and they still promoted it. That is called false advertisement, which is misleading your fans that they're going to get one thing and then turning around and not delivering it. But they tried to deliver something that they would like. I get that, and it was a last-minute change. So people were coming to their fans like, oh, well, what did you want them to do? They had 8 days notice. Not only that, I mean, you do this return, which is great. Nothing against this return here. But what they do after it is the problem. Belair's opponent tonight would be Carmella. Instead, they announced. So the crowd was very upset about this because they paid to see Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, who just won an ESPY for one of the best matches of the year, I suppose, even though I think it was an award WWE kind of gave themselves. But so people wanted to see this rematch that you build and advertise. So obviously the fans are going to be ticked off at this no matter what you did. And WWE knew it, so they tried to pull this fastball here. Belair was disappointed as well, and she said she would get Banks one day soon. We'll see. I don't know what's going on with Sasha Banks. I get this feeling since she was missing months prior to this that she's not happy with this company. I'm speculating. I don't know that. Of course, there's always the possibility of a COVID scenario here. Which is maybe have been affecting some in NXT as well as of late. But again, a lot of this is speculation. It's kind of like the Keith Lee stuff. We shouldn't speculate too much because we just don't know the situation. However, when you have 8 days notice like that's where we have a right to criticize here because they tried to pull this huge return. Becky Lynch's music hit. The first time we've seen her since she left for maternity leave to become a mother to her and Seth Rollins' young baby. So the crowd erupted for a return. Absolutely they did. No doubt about it. Becky Lynch is great. I have nothing against Becky Lynch. She's a great talent all the way around. However, the way WWE booked this, a lot of people online were comparing what was the better return, this or CM Punk. CM Punk, by default, wins this argument because both had tremendous pops. You could argue who had the bigger pop, who had a bigger size building they were in, whether it was a pay-per-view or a weekly show. Some of that's not comparable, but the way you book this after the pop is what matters. The pop itself is great, cool, but if you ruin it after the initial pop, the return isn't as good because of that. And that's exactly what WWE screwed up here when they brought back Becky Lynch. Lynch entered the ring with her gear on. She looked great, by the way. After having a baby, looked like she hadn't missed a beat. She looks great. She hit the ring and the crowd loudly chanted for her because, yes, of course they did. I mean, she's been gone for over a year probably at this point, around a year. And of course, But Lynch attacked Carmella and easily chucked her out of the ring. Way to bury Carmella, by the way. Which, don't get me wrong, she's a loser anyway. She shouldn't be anywhere near the title picture anyway. I'm not saying her as a person is a loser. I'm saying her character has not earned any title shots. She's had title shots, lost every one, and then continues to get these title shots. So the character is a loser. There's no sense for her to even be put in this match to begin with. So she chucked her out, but at the same time, that sucks for her. Becky Lynch made her look like trash by just chucking her out of the ring here, which you got a weak women's division anyway. Maybe you should try to, maybe not make them look like that. I get Becky Lynch is the man, and she's the top dog, so to speak, in the women's division, so to speak, outside of Charlotte. But there's other women that you need to be building up here, and chucking Carmella like yesterday's news is not the way to go about it. So Lynch faced off with Belair, and the crowd cheered. Obviously, this is a dream match. Sure, why wouldn't this crowd want to see it? Maybe if you book it properly, it would actually be a great main event at a pay-per-view sometime, which I'm sure we'll get again. But this isn't the best way to start this for sure, because I have no desire to see this after this. Lynch grabbed a mic and said she and Belair should blow the roof off this joint. So Bianca Belair accepted, and the crowd loved that because that's the only way you're going to make them happy after Sasha Banks wasn't going to be there. Great idea on paper, but what they did ruined it. So in 25 seconds, according to this, I've seen a couple people talk about how long this match was, but anyway, it was 20-some seconds or less. It was very, very short. Lynch offered a handshake, but as soon as Bianca Belair shook her hand, Lynch clocked her and hit a manhandle slam, or a Uranagi, for the quick pinfall win here, and Becky Lynch is a new champion, the SmackDown Women's Champion, which, two things with this. First of all, why is she getting a title match without earning it? Now, I even said on this channel that I have no problem whenever they bring back Becky Lynch if she gets an automatic rematch for the Raw title, the Raw Women's Championship, because that's the one she vacated. She never lost when she went on maternity leave. The Raw title. If this was for the Raw Championship, I would not have a problem with this. But the fact that this is the SmackDown Women's Championship, who Becky has not even had in I don't know how long, to just be thrown into this match and to earn this opportunity when she had nothing to do with the SmackDown Women's title makes no logical sense. That's problem number one. So explain to me why she deserves a SmackDown title shot. There's no reason for that. Number two, why are you beating Bianca Belair, the woman who went over at WrestleMania, your biggest show of the year, and won an ESPY award with the one of the other best women wrestlers on this roster in Sasha Banks? Why are you beating Bianca Belair, who you've billed since Mania as the best women's wrestler, in 20-some seconds or less? This is Daniel Bryan against Sheamus all over again. That was terrible too, by the way. Anytime you beat somebody this quick, yes, I get it's supposed to be shocking, like a knockout punch in boxing or MMA. But when you do this, you could do it to certain people maybe. Like I think Goldberg beat Brock Lesnar. It isn't going to hurt Brock Lesnar. It does, really. It's not going to affect his standing, I should say, in the company. It's not good to do it that way, but at least somebody like that, it's not going to affect him as badly. Somebody like Bianca Belair, who is one of the new faces on the main roster coming up from NXT just this year. Kind of like when Charlotte beat Rhea Ripley. Now, she didn't beat her that fast last year, but when you beat somebody who's that young coming up from the NXT roster, you don't want to beat them like this. Granted, I understand Bianca held the belt, but here's the thing. You're making her look weak. Like, okay, well, Becky's back. I guess the title goes right back to Becky Lynch because Bianca's not worthy of holding the belt. Garbage. Of course she is. She's a great talent. And you could clearly tell that Bianca was disappointed with this. You could just see it on her face. And not only that, I mentioned earlier, you could speak up about certain situations. I'm not going to put Becky Lynch, on blast because of this too much, but she is a little at fault here, a little bit, because like a John Cena, like a Roman Reigns, Becky Lynch is in a position in this company where she could actually, step up and say, I don't like this idea. I think it's a bad call. It's going to make Bianca look worse. It's going to, wallop her, standing right now. She doesn't need to be losing like this because it's only going to hurt her. But Becky Lynch, if she said something, she got ignored, or she didn't say anything at all because she went along with this. This is not good. This is like, Bill Goldberg, winning the world title. Bill Goldberg should have been like the first person to say, no. At my stage in the career, I don't need that more than the person I beat had it. Becky Lynch doesn't need to beat Bianca Belair to get over with this girl. She was already over. Not only that, if you want to make this return really good, you book it like you did at the end of this show where, maybe, Bianca either doesn't have a match tonight, or I'm sure they felt they had to deliver something, which is fine, but deliver the match in full. First of all, you could have done that. Second of all, you could have made a triple threat match with, Bianca, Becky, and Carmella. Maybe Carmella takes the pinfall instead of Bianca from Becky, and then Bianca and Becky could have their one-on-one later because Bianca didn't get pinned. You could do that, even though she technically lost. We've talked on this channel about losing a triple threat. It's still bad. They shouldn't get a rematch because of that. But that's at least another option here. There's just a lot of things you could have done differently. You could have booked this where, Bianca and Becky had a stare down, but then you don't deliver. If you're going to do it in 20 seconds, there's no sense in having the match anyway. You could have had them had a stare down and then built to a match next month, 2 months from now, whenever you want to do it, which we're going to get a rematch clearly here. At some point, they're going to probably build it because apparently, according to Ringside News, after the show, and this weekend, I guess it was today, it was reported, or tonight, that apparently WWE now has plans, which sounds like a bit of a knee-jerk reaction again, to some of the reaction that they got from this, because the fans were livid with this because they love Bianca, they love these new stars, they want to see WWE create new talent, and when you wallop somebody like this, it's not going to go over with the crowd. So it's been universally hated by most people in the community. So WWE is now reporting that, or PW Insider is reporting actually, that WWE is now slated to be the top women's heel on SmackDown. So now they're going to turn Becky Lynch heel, and she's going to be the top bad girl on the brand. And, of course, that will set up, Bianca Belair, babyface, chasing for the title, which that makes some sense when it comes to chasing for the title. The babyface chasing for the belt is always good storytelling. But I wonder how much of that is a reaction to the reaction they got because of this return was universally hated. Becky was over with the crowd. They loved her because it's a return. But if you wanted to turn Becky heel, now granted, she did pull the handshake maneuver and then clocked her, and you could say she pulled a heel tag. Maybe that was the plan, but it feels like a reaction to it. But maybe the handshake is telling, maybe it was the plan all along. But either way, interesting. Maybe you can align her with Seth Rollins, and he's kind of a heel. They're together. I mean, you can maybe do that thing. I don't know. We'll see where this goes, I guess, even though I have a hard time believing anybody's going to be really caring about this now because the way you just really hurt Bianca Belair. And to be honest, for me and a lot of other people out there, after they did this to Bianca, it took everybody out of SummerSlam. It took them out of the show like they didn't care. We just kind of turned our brains off like, well, what's the point of watching the rest of the show now? Which already had a rough build-up for the weeks prior to that. So it's just hard for us to get invested, but I don't know. That sort of thing, you could do something so right with the Becky Lynch return and then do something completely stupid at the same time. So in my opinion, there's no debate about this. CM Punk had the far better return, even better than Brock. Brock was good, but at the same time, we'll get into that here in a minute, but it's like Brock again. So we'll get into it. We had some celebrities and stuff that were at the show. Drew McIntyre then defeated Jinder Mahal 4.5 minutes. This was a Monday Night Raw match. It's really not worth going over here. McIntyre took a swing with his sword at Mahal and his lackeys, I think, after the match, and things like that. So it's kind of short, sweet. It's only 4.5 minutes, like I said. So nothing really right home about. We've seen this match over and over again with this crew on Raw. So it's not really a whole lot to write home about. It was just kind of there. Triple threat match. Charlotte Flair defeated Nikki Ash and Rhea Ripley to win the Raw Women's Championship here in a 13-minute match. They seem to be adding fake cheering to Nikki's entrance because it's not over with the crowd, which we've been saying here on the channel for a few weeks now. The gimmick is not over. Everybody loves Nikki, but this gimmick is not very good. She received a mixed reaction during the in-ring introductions. She took her time handing the belt to the referee, probably because she knew she was losing it. I mean, I love Nikki Cross, Nikki Ash, whatever you want to call her here, but this has not been good from the get-go. She's fluked her way into all these wins. They've not given her a legitimate win per se. She cashed in the Money in the Bank. The one time she beat Charlotte, Charlotte did 95% of the offense. She kind of fluked her way to win the briefcase to begin with when everybody else was kind of fighting each other. It's just not been booked properly. She's not been booked very strongly. She's been a fluke champion, unfortunately, and apparently a transitional from Charlotte to Charlotte. So if you're going to do that, why didn't Charlotte just hold the title the whole time? That's just my opinion. So Nikki tapped out actually here to the figure 8 at the end of this match. So Ripley's dead. She's not going anywhere. She's been dead since last year when Charlotte beat her. And of course Charlotte, completely destroyed the NXT Women's Championship relevancy at the time. Too, with that whole thing where she cashed in her Royal Rumble win on that. This has just been bad all the way around. I've often wondered if Charlotte Flair is even going to be with the company much longer, because obviously, her boyfriend, fiance, whatever you want to call him, Andrade, is now over in AEW. Her dad, Ric Flair, is most likely going to, I know he's appearing for NWA. He'll be there, and he was in Mexico with Andrade. I just get this feeling that Charlotte is kind of going through the motions, and it feels like WWE is trying to give her the belts to kind of, appease her, make her happy. I don't know. It just feels a little odd. But I would not be stunned if Charlotte Flair eventually says, I'm out of here too, much like everybody else seems to be jumping ship. I feel like Sasha Banks may be on that way out too, because something's going on there. The reason why she wasn't on this show, she wasn't at, wrestling for the last 5 months or so, or whatever it was, since Mania. Selling the injury from the ponytail whip, okay, sure. But it feels like there's something else going on there. It just feels like Sasha's not happy. A lot of people ain't happy. They're just not saying it. You can tell by their body language sometimes and their effort they're giving in the ring. And Charlotte is one of those, I feel like, she's gotten a little better lately, but since Mania, it's just kind of been like she's just been there. So I don't know what's going on, but something's not right. WWE needs to get a better handle on their talent, get a better, treat them better. Treat them like human beings. That'll go a long way. That being said, though, since Charlotte is now a 12-time champion, okay, got to pad the numbers. But another great thing on this show, though, was the fact that Edge versus Seth Rollins, 21 minutes here, long match, good match, great entrance to start this with Edge coming out to the Brood, the entrance and lighting and the flames and all that sort of stuff rising up and things like that. That was great. Couldn't use pyro here. Apparently the building was having all sorts of issues as well, which is another problem. It's not really WWE's fault that this new stadium in Las Vegas was having all these issues, from the concession stands, not being able to read cards. We had toilet issues where toilets were overflowing. We had, all sorts of issues. We couldn't use pyro. I don't know if it was some sort of code thing. But it seems like they were just having issues, all night long. Part of it's not on WWE, but another part it is kind of on WWE, because they booked the stadium. And maybe they thought that everything would work okay and all that sort of stuff. But maybe you need to do your due diligence and realizing, okay, this stadium's not ready to go yet. Maybe they were promised it would be. So I'm not going to kill WWE too much for it. But it's not a good thing for any of the fans all the way around. Because you imagine if the toilets were bad, 40-some thousand fans or whatever. I know they said 51, but they lied about that, as they always do. I think they said, 51,000 people were in attendance, but the real number was around 45. WWE does this thing where they lie about their numbers all the time to make themselves look more popular than they are. It's not a big difference, so who cares? 45,000 is still a good number. It doesn't really matter, but WWE does this sort of thing. But anyhow, a great match here, though, with Edge defeating Seth Rollins. For sure. He had him tap out to a crossface here. Edge wins. It's really quite good, and it was a really good finish. I hope this doesn't continue. I hope this is, because we've seen it. It was good. It was great. Let's move on now. Let's not overstay our welcome here. I know it was good. A lot of times WWE does this thing where it's like, oh, that was great. We got to do it again. And don't kill it. This was great. All right. We get it. Move on now. So let's hope we move on to something new. But I'm not super confident on it, so we'll see what happens. John Morrison and The Miz were in the ring at 10:58 p.m., which was interesting because this show was supposed to end kind of early due to, I believe, a boxing match that was in the area as well, and they were trying to not conflict with that. But WWE, they went for another hour here, so apparently either WWE didn't care what the city wanted, or they just did it anyway. But I don't know. It was interesting. There were definitely some timing issues, possibly. So why couldn't you cut this part, by the way? John Morrison and The Miz were in the ring. Miz wanted Morrison to bring out the Dripstick 2000, but Morrison thought Miz had it. This was really ridiculous and stupid. There's no point in this. They argued until they were interrupted by Xavier Woods, dressed as Wolfpack Scott Hall, which is nothing wrong with that. Xavier Woods and the New Day always have great attire, which, by the way, where is Kofi Kingston tonight? I know they kind of Kofi, Bianca Belair. They pulled a Brock Lesnar destroying Kofi Kingston. with Bianca. So I don't know if that was, but for whatever reason, Kofi wasn't here. This made no sense, really. But they do this thing where people just all of a sudden disappear and there's no explanation. And it's like, we're not stupid. Tell us where these people are. I mean, if it's COVID or something, just say it. We get it. It's not a problem. Like the Keith Lee situation. There was no reason to hide that. Why wasn't Keith Lee allowed to talk about it? He was ill. That's fine. You'll eliminate a lot of, freaking fan frustration and criticism if you just be honest with us. But they don't do that. Much like Scarlett Bordeaux. Where's she? We'll talk about that in a second. So Xavier Woods made a few, he came out with a water jug on his back attached to a water gun. This was apparently the Dripstick 2000. Woods made a few Scott Hall references, but the crowd either didn't get it or didn't care. He soaked Miz and Morrison to complete silence from the crowd. The New Day always gets a reaction, so it's impressive. They did something so dumb that Woods completely died in front of this crowd. So yeah, this was not good. And if you're going to do this segment, why don't you just not do this? You could have waited till Raw to do this, but you had to get the dripsticks on this pay-per-view, right? Moist TV is so over. Anyway, you could have done this to where you could have eliminated this. I don't know how long this took, but you could have done at least a little bit of a match with Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch if you were going to do this segment. But no, you had to put this in there and just completely kill Bianca. So it's Karrion Kross-esque when it comes to how bad that booking decision was. So yeah. Speaking of bad decisions, WWE Championship match, Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg ended in a ref stoppage. This was absolutely terrible. Bill Goldberg looks every bit as old as he is. He about murdered Bobby Lashley on multiple occasions in this, especially when he chucked him off the top rope, and Bobby Lashley almost landed square on his neck and head. Hopefully Lashley's okay. He appeared all right, but this match ended basically where Goldberg, got attacked in the leg by MVP with his cane, but it looked like at one point Goldberg may have even injured his leg at some point. He really couldn't stand. I don't know. I couldn't tell if he was selling or if he was legitimately hurt here. But either way, Goldberg looked terrible. Bobby Lashley was doing his best, I think, here, as best he could. But there's really no need for this. Again, it's like, why are you bringing back Bill Goldberg, let alone bringing him back, putting him in a title match that he didn't earn? The last time we saw him, or John Cena for that matter, was in losing efforts. So there's no point to do this. And apparently they're going to do the same thing with with Brock Lesnar, where they're just going to bring him back for whatever reason. You're in the title match now, didn't earn it, that sort of thing. So that notwithstanding, just Goldberg looked terrible here. The crowd was actually cheering Bobby Lashley, who is the heel here, because they hated the fact that Goldberg was in this match so much. But again, WWE doesn't listen to the crowds. Everything I'm saying right now is 100% true, but WWE doesn't listen to that. They're like, no. We want them to cheer Bill Goldberg, but they booed him. The crowd did not want Goldberg to win the title, and I actually thought there was a chance that Goldberg or Cena could walk away with the belts tonight, because it's just what WWE does. Screw the fans. They don't care what we think. But at least Lashley did keep the belt here, so there is that. But apparently this must continue, because after the match, Lashley also destroyed Goldberg's son Gage, putting him in the Hurt Lock, and afterwards Goldberg yelled, "I'm going to kill you." So apparently we're getting this again. Maybe it's Saudi Arabia. I don't know. Either way, please don't do this. Just stop with Bill Goldberg. Stop with this. Bring him back. The old talents, part-timers, get title matches for no reason. If you want to bring him back is one thing, but don't put him in the title matches. It makes no sense narratively or common sense-wise to do that sort of thing. So why are you doing it? Main event time after this. Cena and Reigns had a good match here, no doubt. It was very easy to follow after the Bill Goldberg debacle, which, again, Goldberg about killed Undertaker as well. So, it's time to hang it up, Bill. I'm sorry. Love you. You were never the greatest wrestler to begin with, but it's over, dude. Please stop. For the sake of everybody. Roman Reigns defeated John Cena here. Was a good match. Kind of slow, methodical. That's kind of Roman Reigns' thing. He does a great job of cutting these impromptu promos a little bit on his opponent during the match. That's always a classic from Roman Reigns here. Cena ended up putting him through a table on the outside with an AA. Also hit an avalanche AA at one point, which got some very close near falls. Again, a lot of people were buying it, even me included. I thought there was a chance Cena could win his 17-time world champion here, which I think would have been an absolute mistake. We said here on the channel that nobody should be beating Roman Reigns anytime soon. Not a Cena, not a Brock, not a Rock, no matter whoever you bring in, unless it's the next superstar you're going to build to be your next Roman Reigns, your next John Cena. This is the new Undertaker streak. You should not be pinning Roman, period, until it's time to build that next star. So hopefully, at least they made the right call here for one night, and Roman's retained his belt here as he gets a win over Cena via pinfall. He yelled, "I am WWE," and he set him up for the spear and hit him with that spear for the win. Very strong main event. Good showing by both guys. This was one of the 3 matches that was really good on the show. Edge and Seth Rollins and Damian Priest versus Sheamus was the other 2. So those were all booked really good. Nothing wrong with that at all. But at the end of this show, it looked like we were going to go off the air with Roman Reigns, holding the belt up as the show was going to go off the air when Brock Lesnar's music hit. And out of nowhere, the Beast Incarnate returned, looking like Goro from Mortal Kombat with a big ponytail and a big, man beast beard, whatever you want to call it. He looked. I'm glad he came back with this look. It gives him something a different aesthetic than what we've used and seen him as. So that's great, and he looked in great physical shape too. Brock Lesnar did look great. There's no doubt about that. But again, this kind of felt reactionary to like, all right, at what point in some of these did WWE say, CM Punk's on AEW, we got to do something big here, pal. We got to make a splash. We got to get the people talking. They did it with Becky. We don't know exactly when that phone call was made, whether it was planned or not. We don't know if the Brock Lesnar stuff was planned or not. How much of this was flying by the seat of your pants like, we got to come up with something big to get people talking and get the attention off of AEW. And they say AEW is not competition. Again, competition is not bad, but admit it. We're in a competition if you're going to do these sort of things, or have Roman talk about the competition or all these other, whatever. It's perfectly fine to be in competition because that means you're going to put your best foot forward and have good shows. That means, better for the fans. Competition is great. That's good for us. But if you're going to act like they're not competition, you don't need to be doing reactionary, spur of the moment things like this. Because apparently the report was Brock Lesnar was supposed to be saved to go against Roman Reigns, not at next year's WrestleMania, but the next year WrestleMania in 2023. So if that was the case, granted, a year and a half is a long time to wait on this match, and you want to keep Roman as the strong champion that long, which would be great if done properly. But apparently they want to, they want to make a splash. They want to do something big now, whether that be for Saudi Arabia or whatever it may be. They brought in Brock Lesnar to do this here. Maybe a year and a half would have been too long to wait, but I could maybe see you doing it at the Rumble or at Mania, and maybe if they don't do Rock, but they clearly want to do Dwayne Johnson, The Rock versus Roman Reigns at Mania. But again, nobody should be beating Reigns on all these lists of names here for sure. But anyway, as Brock come back, he looked great. As Reigns posed, he come down to the ring, and Lesnar marched out in jeans and a black tank top. Lesnar got in Reigns' face until Reigns backed out and left the ring. Good. You did that great. You booked that. Why couldn't you have done that with Becky and Bianca is beyond me. But at least in this case, great. That's absolutely great that they teased it. Even though we've seen this match before. It's been a while, but we've seen it before. And not only that, have we seen it before, as great as this return was, because we didn't know when Brock was coming, once again, it's part-timer Brock. He's going to come in, be in a title match. If he beats Roman and takes the belt and leaves again and only comes back occasionally as the champion, absolutely ridiculous. Now, the one good thing about this, though, is the fact that there is Paul Heyman in the middle of this. Because, again, WWE didn't explain, like a lot of other things they just kind of drop and they don't explain. Well, they've never told us why Paul Heyman is no longer with Brock Lesnar and he's with Roman Reigns. The real reason is Brock, his contract was up and he went home. That sort of thing, and he left, and we didn't know when he was coming back. So they had Heyman do other things. But storyline-wise, we did not know why Paul Heyman just aligned himself with Roman. Now we're going to get an answer, I'm assuming, because Heyman's going to be in the middle of these two guys. And obviously, I'm assuming Brock is going to be the babyface in this scenario for a change. So that'll be good. It'll be different in that regard. So at least it seems like the roles are going to be flipped here with Roman being the heel and Brock the babyface and Heyman stuck in the middle. That'll be good, but it's still Brock Lesnar again. You're not building new talent. You're bringing in old guys, the tried and true, apparently. Again, don't get me wrong. Brock is popular and he probably has, he helps ratings. People are interested when he's in the ring. No doubt about that. But you still have to build new talent. Eventually, what's going to happen when you can't call Brock Lesnar to come back? What's going to happen when you can't call John Cena to come back? You used to be able to call Undertaker to come back, and you can't do that no more. He's done. At some point, you're not going to have new stars because you keep burying them this whole time. And like your Bianca Belair's, what happens when Charlotte and Becky retire? You're going to have anybody else right now? Who's going to challenge Charlotte Flair? You've beaten all the challengers on Raw. You could have Bianca challenge Becky Lynch on SmackDown, but she just beat her in record time. So it makes no sense because we've already seen it. Why should we care? Again, you've got to get the audience to care about your feuds, and you keep showing this the same stuff over and over, rematch after rematch after rematch, same people in the main event feud over and over and over again. It's a problem. You got to fix it. This is why fans are checking out of WWE in droves. So, and I can't blame them. I'm not saying AEW is perfect. They're not. They have their mistakes sometimes too. But at least they put in the effort. They put in the blood, sweat, and tears to make these feuds work, make them fresh. New matchups. Talented wrestlers getting the pushes, and the young people getting over. Even though they've got legends and stuff too, they use them properly. So where the new faces and stars are brought up. I mean, Sammy Guevara, MJF's, Adam Hangman Page, Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, just to name a few, Britt Baker. All of these are new stars that they have developed and have become superstars on these brands. They haven't been burying them like crazy. So they didn't bring in Sting to win the world title over there, okay? CM Punk could challenge for the world title at some point, but he's going to have to earn it just like everybody else. They're not going to bring in Ruby Soho and beat Britt Baker in 20 seconds. They're not going to do that. Say what you want about AEW and Tony Khan. AEW and Tony Khan are not going to do what Vince McMahon did tonight to Bianca Belair. It's just not going to happen. So forget it. It just isn't. So this is a problem for WWE. They've got to get it fixed if they want to continue to keep their fan base. So speaking of that, there was some backstage SummerSlam news after the show came out. Apparently, John Cena also took a beat down from Brock Lesnar, getting sent to Suplex City after the show went off the air. So it seems that John Cena, according to Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer, he claims that it looks as if John Cena is done with the company, and he will be there are no immediate plans to bring him back anytime soon, and he is not being discussed for any future storylines as of now. So Cena, he's already gone. So again, you built this whole thing around Cena. Now what? I mean, yeah, clearly it's Brock, but if you didn't bring in Brock, Roman would have had nobody. So you haven't been building anybody else. Maybe you could do Big E, but Big E needs to be cashing in on Bobby Lashley whenever this Goldberg thing is done, which hopefully it's now. But so again, you've got to start building some of these other challengers besides these guys you're just going to call back like Rock or Brock or Cena. You got to stop it. The company apparently knew that Sasha Banks was not going to miss, or was going to miss SummerSlam 8 days prior. So yeah, they did bring back Becky Lynch earlier than expected, according to Meltzer. So that was obviously an audible they called. But again, book it better. It's not known whether the short match was a result of Lynch not being ready for a longer bout or just a creative decision. There was no mention of the reason behind Sasha's absence, so it's hard to say when she will be back. Like I said, it's not looking good. Some fans were concerned about Damian Priest. He looked injured with his hip during the show, but apparently he was fine backstage. And, of course, the attendance number, as I mentioned, was not nearly as big as they claimed. So, yes, there are things that, WWE embellishes constantly. So, you got to, again, these shows have got to be better. But speaking of a good show, though, it's maybe the last good show we have. We'll run through this kind of quickly here because I know we're a little over an hour long already. But NXT TakeOver 36 was a good show, and it may be the last good NXT show because apparently big changes are coming to NXT. Some of the way things ended tonight clearly, indicate possibly things are going to be changing down the line here. So we had a pre-show match with Rich Holland defeating Trey Baxter. He called out Timothy Thatcher, and I guess we're going to be getting that. It may even be on NXT this coming Tuesday. We'll have to wait and see. $1 Million Championship match. Cameron Grimes defeated LA Knight to win the $1 Million Championship. This is one of the better things that NXT's been doing. This is a very good opener. The crowd was hot for this because we all love Cameron Grimes. We all despise LA Knight. He's a great heel. He's got a little bit of Dwayne The Rock Johnson in him, especially in his promo that Brandon, our buddy here, has been mentioning as well. And, of course, Ted DiBiase did get involved a little bit on the outside, whipping Cameron Grimes into him for a dropkick. And I believe even at the end of the match, DiBiase took Knight down with the right hand, using the championship belt to distract the official. He locked in the $1 Million Dream on LA Knight. Back inside the ring, though, Cameron Grimes hit the cave-in to win the title. So Ted DiBiase does not have to become his butler, and Cameron Grimes is the new $1 Million champion. Great storytelling here. Again, this has been going on for a while. The babyface gets the title now. It's probably going to be time to move on at some point here. But this definitely felt like a blow-off. But who knows? Maybe LA Knight gets another shot at it. But I think it's just kind of played out at this point. They've done a great job with the storytelling. Great, video segments backstage when it comes to, the comedy of, Grimes being his butler and all this sort of stuff, them going golfing and all this sort of thing. So they've done a great job with it, but I think it's time to officially move on from this feud and find something new. NXT Women's Championship. Raquel Gonzalez defeated Dakota Kai here. Very good matches again. NXT's just, they know what they're doing when it comes to this, at least for now. We'll see what happens when they start to try to go back to their developmental strategy and not making it a third brand and all that sort of stuff. But Dakota Kai retains here. Probably the right call. Not quite time yet to take the belt off Raquel. Gonzalez drove Kai into a corner. They fought on the top rope where Kai escaped and hit a pump kick. She went for the Yakuza kick, but Gonzalez hit a second rope Chignona bomb, I think is how you pronounce it, for the win. But the real story here is after the match, former NXT Women's Champion, or NXT UK Women's Champion, I should say, Kaylee Ray's music played, and she stared down Gonzalez from the ramp. So apparently this is where we're going to go in the future here. Again, new feud. New time, end of an era for NXT, maybe starting out something new here. Part of it is, to me, NXT women's division is kind of weak right now. They've called up some of their heavier hitters to the main roster that they've not been using very much, like Toni Storm and Nox and Shotzi. So the contenders for NXT are kind of short and sweet at this point. So they're calling in the NXT UK women now to go up against Raquel Gonzalez. I'm sure it'll be good. Nothing, no doubt about that. But we got to start rebuilding this division. No doubt about it. NXT UK Championship, Ilya Dragunov defeated Walter to win the title and end Walter's outstanding reign of dominance here in NXT UK. This is definitely a classic. One of the best matches in WWE history. This was absolutely insane. Walter is just a great talent, and Dragunov is not too bad himself. He taps out Walter here, which is even more interesting here with a sleeper after strikes and rabbit punches and things like that. But yeah, this match was brutal. Tons of chops, you name it, all over the place. This thing was absolutely insane. It's very hard to describe, but go check it out. If you're going to watch one match this weekend, Walter versus Dragunov is one of the matches you want to check out. It's one of the best matches of the year, possibly in WWE history, as this article mentions here. So definitely go check it out. But Walter's reign is officially over. What this means for Walter, I don't know. I mentioned to our Fun Facts and Wrestling Trivia guru, Mike, that it would be interesting to see Walter go to the main roster, but that would definitely be a demotion. But I think there's not much else he can do in NXT. What else can he do? I don't know, contract situation or anything like that with Walter, but I don't think he's out the door or anything like that. Maybe if he could always come to the main NXT roster and challenge, the new NXT champion for that, which would be a match I'd pay to see. But we'll have to wait and see what goes on with Walter. But as for Dragunov, he is now the czar, and he is going to be the champion over at the NXT UK brand. So can't wait to see what happens with Walter. I wait with anticipation. But if he goes to the main roster, I worry because they buried him pretty quickly. As another guy they buried at Survivor Series a few years back when he was the first man eliminated, even though he has been undefeated for a long time in NXT UK and stuff like that. So that was the wrong call there, much like the Karrion Kross call and the Bianca Belair call and the Rhea Ripley call and everything they've done with NXT talents. It's like the main roster punishes those who were successful in NXT. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor. The list goes on and on here outside of possibly Seth Rollins and a few guys like that. NXT, for whatever reason, the main roster does not treat them kindly. And if you want out, you need to get out and find yourself some better companies to work for who give you more creative freedom and won't bury you like the main roster will. So if you can get out, by all means, unless you like the money, nothing wrong with that. But you know what you're getting into when you go to the main roster at this point. The Undisputed finale, Kyle O'Reilly defeats Adam Cole. So speaking of people jumping ship, this was a very good match. Of course, they had to follow, Walter and Dragunov here, so very difficult on these guys. But they both killed each other in completely different ways than the previous match the matches that they've had. Adam Cole lost the first fall. Kyle O'Reilly won the straight-up singles match. Adam Cole won the street fight in the second match. And, of course, Adam Cole loses the third match, the cage match here. So that just basically, back in the old territorial days, back in the day, Vince McMahon's old era, the way if a guy was leaving the territory, the way to do that was to lose on your way out. And, of course, according to Ringside News is now reporting that officially as of midnight, so by the time you're seeing this video, Adam Cole is officially a free agent. He is no longer under contract to WWE. He has not signed an extension or a new contract with the company. So as of right now, he is free to sign with anybody he wants to. And if reports previously were correct, he did not have a no-compete clause in his NXT contract. So if that's the case, conceivably, Adam Cole could show up on AEW Dynamite this week if he chooses to, or anywhere else for that matter. It doesn't have to be AEW. He can make money in New Japan, Impact, Ring of Honor, wherever he wants to go. The world of opportunity is open for Adam Cole, and as of right now, I got a feeling he's going to AEW because, for one, his girlfriend, fiance, whatever she might be, is over in AEW, Britt Baker. So, and not only that, and I forgot to mention earlier, Edge did this sort of same thing during the Seth Rollins match. Edge used the Glam Slam, which is his wife Beth Phoenix's old move, like on Seth Rollins. And in this match, Adam Cole used the Lockjaw, which is Britt Baker's finishing submission hold, on Kyle O'Reilly in this match. So again, possibly a tease about where he's going, or just an homage to his girlfriend. That could be true too. But Adam Cole's also come out and said his Twitch is not shutting down. He's going to be keeping that. And where else can you do that? But AEW, NXT has allowed him to, but the main roster does not. So he's probably not going to the main roster. Either he'll re-sign with NXT, or he'll probably leave, and most likely, it sounds at this point, considering the Young Bucks after this show was off the air as well, the Young Bucks on Twitter were posting videos of seances, which is a reference to bringing people back from the dead, I believe, and the last time that Adam Cole was seen with the Elite, he was killed off during the character of Adam Cole was killed off during an episode of BTE. So if you're going to be bringing his character back to life in AEW, it would make some sense to be looking up seance videos. And of course, the Twitter profile picture of the Young Bucks also had Kenny Omega and one of the Bucks dressed up as Ghostbusters. So again, dropping subtle hints that perhaps that Adam Cole could be on his way to the Elite. So we'll see what happens with Adam Cole, baby. But yeah, great match, no doubt about it. But if he's leaving, he definitely did the job here to put over Kyle O'Reilly on the way out. And of course, Kyle O'Reilly is a close friend of Adam Cole in real life, so it makes sense to put your buddy over. And hopefully, Kyle O'Reilly and the rest of the Undisputed Era, outside of Bobby Fish, who got let go, will hopefully have still some success in NXT moving forward. We got Dragunov was asked about his victory. He said, "The ring general has fallen, and I am now the czar." Legado del Fantasma called out Hit Row, and they're going to have their 6-man on NXT this week. That match will happen, plus the finals of the NXT Breakout Tournament, Odyssey Jones versus Carmelo Hayes. And, of course, Cameron Grimes has announced that he will have a $1 million celebration, which I'm sure is going to bring out LA Knight, and that may be the continuation of it. Either that or somebody else will come out. Maybe they'll want to challenge for the belt. We'll see what happens, but yeah. And then, of course, we had the main event of this video here on the YouTube channel, as well as for NXT TakeOver 36. That is, of course, NXT Championship Samoa Joe versus Karrion Kross for the NXT World Title. I got to admit here, after what they did to Karrion Kross on the main roster, having him lose to Jeff Hardy, and the fashion that he did, and of course they're trying to do damage control with Karrion Kross on that main roster now. They've killed Karrion Kross. Everybody during this match were chanting Hardy, Hardy, and of course after the match was over, nah, hey, can see you on Monday, Karrion. There's video of this out there. They're chanting Hardy at him. I feel bad for Karrion. It's not Karrion's fault. Karrion's fault was doing what the company told him to do, to go out there and lose to Jeff Hardy. They supposedly had an idea for Scarlett to come in, and he was going to be this killer after they beat him, and then he was going to get back to his winning ways when he had his girl come in there for him. But she's even been missing from NXT, so something's going on with Scarlett. They're saying she's not been medically cleared, which she's not wrestling or whatnot, so she's not been available. So I don't know what's going on with Scarlett either. Again, it's just something that she just disappeared. They didn't explain. So it's like, we're not done. We know he comes out with her. You've got to tell us these details, whether it's NXT or WWE. It's all WWE, but NXT's doing these things sometimes too, where there's inexplicable things that are going on. You've got to give us narrative storytelling to tell us why these things are happening. Otherwise, us as fans are like, what the hell? It makes no sense, because a good show should be able to tell you these storylines so where it makes narrative sense. And WWE doesn't do that, and that was a big thing here. Speaking of which, when he come out, no Scarlett was with him. They were chanting, it was either where is Scarlett or we want Scarlett. So from the get go, this match was already kind of being like no one cared at this point. Of course, everybody and their brother knows that Kross is going to the main roster and has already been on Raw for several weeks. That Samoa Joe's going to win the belt here, and of course that is exactly what happened. Good to see Samoa Joe back in the ring, no doubt about that. Glad to see him make his comeback here, and of course he is now the only 3-time NXT World Heavyweight Champion here. So great to see that. Definitely he'll do a good job with the belt depending on how they book him. I have all the faith in Samoa Joe. It's the WWE company, the WWE brand, and their leadership that I have a lack of faith in at this point here. But yeah, he hit him with the muscle buster at the end of the match to get the surprising quick win. It wasn't a super long match. It was only 12 minutes, longer than some on the main roster for sure. But for a world title match here, of course they had some bigger matches earlier in the show that kind of maybe took some of its thunder away. But again, it was just kind of one of those deals. I'm glad they put the NXT title last on the show because that's where the belt should be. But at the same time, everybody and their brother knew the finish of this, and it kind of took away from it. Really, this was probably one of the less great matches on the show. But overall, it was a really good, not great, but really good NXT TakeOver, and what could be the final NXT TakeOver when it comes to the current way that NXT is being run. From what rumors have it that Triple H has not even been in the leadership role of the creative side of things in NXT for a while now. I think up to maybe even a year, which may be why NXT has fallen off to a degree. It's had some moments, but it's also had moments where it's been boring and things that have not quite made some sense, like the Indy Hartwell, Dexter Lumis, you love her or lose her match, you lose her, but we're together anyway. We're going to act like that she didn't lose that stipulation, which she came up with, by the way. So it's like, okay, these sort of things have got to be corrected. You've got to tighten these screws. Otherwise, people are just not going to care. And that's why NXT's ratings did not compete against AEW. AEW, wiped them under the floor, wiped them under the rug, basically, and basically beat them handily when it comes to the ratings war. And if all the rumors are true, AEW Rampage with CM Punk, the rumor is right now the rating was about a 1.6. If that's the case, it's going to rival Monday Night Raw rating. Now, obviously, it was a return. They're probably not going to do that every week. But if Punk can move that needle, which clearly he can, if Bryan Danielson, comes into AEW probably at the end of September or sometime next month, that's going to be another step. If Bray Wyatt comes into AEW, that's going to be another step. And if they bring in Adam Cole, that's going to be another. AEW has not exhausted all of their options when it comes to big returns and signing new talent yet. WWE has already blown their load completely. They've brought back Cena. They brought back Goldberg. They brought back Brock. They've brought back Becky. There is nobody else really outside of The Rock, which again is going to be a one-time thing because The Rock's so busy. A lot of the guys AEW signing are going to be full-time talents. WWE brings back guys for a month or two, and then they're gone again. You can't sustain a pro wrestling company. I know they want to be sports entertainment, but they're pro wrestling. Sorry, that's just the truth of the matter. As long as you've got a big square with ropes and turnbuckles in the middle of your show, you're pro wrestling. Hate to tell you. So yeah, as long as you're doing that, you don't have any long-term booking. You can't continue to sustain a successful wrestling company. AEW is making the right moves, but that's just one man's opinion. If you disagree with me, you're perfectly entitled to do so, but that's just the way I see it. But the real question here is, guys, what did you guys think of all these big pro wrestling shows over a very big weekend here from SmackDown all the way through NXT TakeOver 36? Comment down below. Let me know if you guys like the shows. Do you guys agree with my opinions? Do you disagree with my opinions? Do you think what they did with Becky Lynch was great? Do you think the CM Punk return was awesome, as I did? Please comment down below. Let me know what you guys think, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and please hit that notification bell so you get all the notifications about when we put up new content right here on this channel. Of course, new wrestling recaps every Thursday morning here on the channel, going over all the shows throughout the week here from WWE and AEW. And until our next video, guys, take care.
We about to turn it